Hello, my name is Ware. I work in the corporate sustainability team at Camden, and my role is to manage the team that deals with a variety of engagement activities and initiatives through the Green Camden service for both staff and also for residents. A key theme of the work is to make sure that residents know how to take individual action and also collective action together in their communities. We're always looking at new ways and initiatives to promote this service and to work with our residents, and partnership working has always been a big part of this. And in fact, I've done some work with both Adam and Medisa's program and Claire in the past too. But today I'm going to talk about more of our action research work that we've done, specifically with Oxford University and University College London. So the first problem that we had really was Camden Council's printing behaviours. At one stage, we printed over 1.5 million copies of paper. It's twice the height of St Pancras Tower, so this is a huge problem. And we were looking for an effective and sustainable way to reduce staff printing. What happened was we recently installed new printers into our office that offered robust and real-time data through our staff cards that basically held information around each individual staff member's printing. So this gave us a really good insight into people's behaviours. Dr. Metcalf, who had been dealing with Angela and Charlie on the heat metering project from Oxford University, was also looking for new ways to test some of his behavioural economic theories, and was looking at social norms and incentives and how this could work in real-time situations. He was pretty sure that a similar approach with our staff on printing behaviours would actually produce quite significant savings. So this partnership worked because we both had different skills and resources to bring to the table, and together this enabled us to meet our objectives. The sustainability team had access to the data and also the staff, but we were limited on the resources to be able to do anything with that data. And Oxford University had the experience in behavioural economics and the funding for the incentives. So together we designed the project and timeframes in which we'd be working. In the pilot, 4 different emails were sent out via 2 different messengers, using techniques such as social norms, incentives, offering lottery draws, and we also let some people know that we were watching their behaviours. Instructions for the staff to reduce their printing was over a 3-month period, and after that, the data was retrieved and then analysed. And I'll talk about some of the results towards the end. The second project that we did was with University College London. The Green Camden service had one key program that we really wanted to measure, the Green Camden Zones network. And this was a project that enabled residents to get together with their neighbours to take green action. Christy Bevel from UCL was doing a PhD on the impact of different approaches in creating environmental behaviour change and needed real-life examples for her thesis. So the Green Camden Zones program is a bottom-up approach where residents can lead on projects of their choice. At the same time, we were also offering a top-down approach where home energy visits installed low-cost energy measures into people's homes. So after an initial conversation, we spotted a bit of a collaboration there. In this instance, the project was more or less designed around the most suitable zones for Christie's thesis, rather than anything that we were necessarily looking for. We wanted to be able to measure our zones and know what impact it had, but we had a lot of flexibility on the approach she could take to do this. So we gave Christy all of our top-level data about our zones, and she picked the ones that were the most suitable to her project. And in this case, it was around cycling, and energy. The freedom to design the project meant that Christy led on quite a lot of it, which freed up some of our resources, which was quite beneficial at that time. There were some challenges that we did face in both of these particular projects. We needed a lot of permissions from senior staff to do some of the work we did. This can take time, both in resource for us to write the reports and to request those permissions, and also just the length of time it takes to go through those processes. Another challenge was locality. Christy from UCL was very local to us, so it was easy for her to meet and discuss next stages more collaboratively. Oxford University was far enough away to kind of mean that a lot more was done separately. Christy also got quite more heavily involved in the projects and some of the processes through that too. But Dr. Metcalf couldn't access our offices quite as easily. The projects themselves were very different. The printing project was based on statistics and facts and real data, whereas Christie's project meant that it was a bit more, it was about people's experiences, people's opinions, and people's processes and journeys that they'd taken through their projects. So appreciating this distinction created a bit of a different approach to the individual partnerships. We underestimated the amount of time and resources that we would need to put in for the printing project. So in this situation, it's just worth bearing in mind how much time you have and maybe setting that out quite clearly at the beginning. And finally, we are a local authority, so confidentiality is quite important. We had to be careful and clever about how we shared the data with external partners. So, what did we learn? There are quite a number of outcomes from these projects. I think ultimately, both parties really benefited from this collaboration. Some of the headline figures that we received, we reduced our staff printing by 15%, and this seems to have been sustained over the longer term. We used the data from the pilot to roll this out to all staff in a second phased project. We also had a much better understanding of the impact of top-down and bottom-up approaches. So, for example, top-down works well on people who didn't see themselves as green individuals. So there was learning that we could take with our future promotions. And I think that was the most important thing. There was a lot of learning, and we took a lot of this back into our future engagement work. For example, emails from the boss, our chief executive, had an 8% higher reduction in printing than those from a sustainability officer. So messages and who they come from counts. We're now working with senior management on how they can disseminate green behaviours through the council. Social norms and incentives worked really well, and so we're working on how we can integrate those into our campaigns. So, for example, we're working on a project where we're incentivising people to recycle more on their estates. And we also used a targeted approach for doorstepping, for recycling, which resulted in better conversations and a lot more follow-up actions. So the results have really been quite invaluable and have lasted beyond the actual project themselves. So I think from the university's point of view, they also received information for their thesis, they received information they could then use to progress their academic research. So all in all, it was quite a beneficial partnership.
I think that all of these projects that we've seen so far are really interesting in terms of the relationships that you have between the academic institutions and parties and those in the civil society sector or in the community. I work with several international organizations that are trying to look at how do we develop these types of relationships, almost kind of in a marketplace. Ashoka, Aspen Institute, there's various forums that are trying to figure out how to engage between community organizations and academic institutions. My department has loads of PhDs and master's students that are looking for projects. And you can find them all over the world, but there's no intermediary, there's no facilitator to match that. And I think for DACES, this is the first time that I've engaged with this international network, and we're emphasizing networks, but it's a great way to look at how to match skills, services, needs, expertise across these different bounds. There's a great example of MIT that has the Poverty Action Lab that bridges development economists with development NGOs all over the world. There's hundreds of initiatives that they're engaging in, but there's nothing that I've seen specifically for design, which could be very potent and powerful, again, to maximize the potential of that network.
I have issues with behaviour change and nudge politics. I've written about it elsewhere, but when we've worked with cyclists, we do it collaboratively. Adam and I, we develop relationships, and the nudge that might be the products that we design with Camden was worked on collectively. When it comes top down, when people think Big Brother's looking at their print, do you think that might have an adverse effect? Or isn't that your experience? I'm sorry, I don't mean to ask such a difficult question, but I do have problems with nudge.
And I think that was one of the problems with the printing project originally, was permissions and overcoming some of senior management concerns on some of those things. I think it's quite difficult. The actual emails themselves said things like, you print 67% more than your colleagues. Please reduce your printing, frowny face. Or the opposite, which was, well done, you reduced 10%, you print 10% less. So I guess at the end of the day, we were going to put an email out that said, please reduce your printing. So the choice was, do we put an email out that says, please reduce your printing and hope that people listen? Or do we put an email out that is likely to have some kind of an impact or some kind of an effect that will then incur an action where people do reduce their printing? And I think that's ultimately what it came down to. And so we chose to go for the trial of an effective solution rather than perhaps just a simple one. So I guess that's where the behaviour change thing comes in. There is always the risks, of course, that people will use it in the wrong way. With regards to Christie's project, that was really just looking at the impact of behaviour change on our projects. So for the Green Zones program, one of the things that she was measuring was peer-to-peer messaging. So this came from the resident. The resident wanted to increase recycling in their area, and they wanted to know how to do it. So we gave them the resources, the leaflets, and a little bit of support and advice about how to do it. And then they themselves went through and door-knocked and led on the project and did whatever they wanted to do in order to do it. All we did was measure if that worked or not. So in that sense, that had no top-down approach or anything. We were just looking at the impact that a resident had actually done. So quite different behaviour change type projects, I suppose, and different sort of ways of designing how we did it and how we measured them and evaluated it.